Welcome back for part two. We are just continuing on with Aaron Callaghan and his story. Make sure you listen to part one because I know from interacting with Aaron that a lot of what he has shared also creates the foundation for him to move through challenges as well. So we'll dive into a little bit more around living with Kate as she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer and life without Kate. We're into almost 2.5 years now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay. And well, what do you want to share? I'll let you start.
Where do I want to start?
Or perhaps if I give you a prompt, it's come to me now. Just how did you manage her receiving this diagnosis? You guys went to Mexico pretty quickly, navigating a lot of alternatives. Kate, her social media account really blew up during that time. She was having a lot of people contact her, visit her. You don't come across as someone who really, I guess you're more introverted.
Yes.
How did you handle it?
There was, like if I was to really sort of try and put it into words and things like that, as you have sort of alluded to, it was very sort of chaotic. Like obviously, when Kate sort of first got the diagnosis and things like that, it's
because you were away, weren't you?
Just complete shock, and you never really expect to be in that position, particularly with Kate being young and fit and up until that point very healthy and leading a very sort of healthy lifestyle, so we were there as a family. My feelings were that life couldn't get much better. We were told we couldn't have children naturally. We'd had these two amazing children, sort of natural birth.
How old were they at the time?
4 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And they had sort of brought us so much joy. Like in saying that, as I'm sure all parents will agree, like it's not easy. There's lots of particularly for myself, I only speak for myself, like parenting is significantly harder than what I anticipated. Amazing children. We're both sort of seemingly sort of fit and healthy. We're living in this beautiful part of the world. We've got great friends, community. Life couldn't really sort of get much better, and then to have that sort of bombshell drop, it rocks you, but again, for me personally, and whether it's a bit of stupidity or naivety, like I was just very confident that we would get on top of things. We'd do everything that we could, and it'd be a great sort of success story. And that was sort of the philosophy that we sort of both took on straight away, and that probably sort of drove a lot of the way we managed things and things. But yeah, as you say, like, there was lots of, lots of sort of people coming around and things like that, and um, which we're both very, very grateful for. But it's also, as you sort of mentioned, you're limited with energy, aren't you? So there's still drawing on those reserves to a certain degree. Then we had that, we're lucky enough to sort of manage to get the funds and things like that to go to Mexico. And again, so that was over, Kate was actually away for Christmas. So again, just managing things over that sort of time with regards to, kids here experiencing Christmas while we're in Mexico getting treatments, and watching them open their presents and things like that over Zoom. It's all, sort of looking back, there's an element of that really was quite sort of surreal. So Kate's mum went over for sort of the first sort of week and a bit to be with her, and then Tracy went over as well. So, a doctor who'd sort of been helping us, and then I sort of went over for the last bit, and then we sort of travelled back. And like it was it was quite an amazing experience. But like I still sort of remember, like on the final day at the clinic, and you have your catch up with the doctor and things, and his take on it was that this is a very aggressive cancer, which to hear those words sort of sends a shock through your body. But again, we got a whole lot of supplements from the clinic and things like that, and basically came back with a suitcase of stuff to continue this sort of treatments with. So again, we're sort of still with that sort of mindset. We had a pretty horrific trip back from Mexico. So
yeah, I can't remember if I spoke about it with Robin or we were waiting for you to share, but I was amazed that she got back. Did you want to share anything around that?
Yeah, so we had a pretty early sort of morning flight, and so we're up, so shower and stuff like that, and next minute sort of Kate sort of screams out, and so she was in the shower and she'd vomited. The vomit was like this really sort of thick, dark blood, and like we're in Mexico. The clinic was closed, because it was early morning. What do we do? And so we made the decision that we were going to try and get on the plane. So
because was another factor that you can't get insurance when you're traveling if you've got cancer, and so then there was fear of, because she did have to have a hospital visit for some drainage of ascites, and so didn't want to end up back in a hospital overseas, and the cost as well.
So we flew from Mexico up to LA. We're meeting friends in LA, and so we managed to get on the plane. We had to. So Kate was in a wheelchair and things, and at first they weren't going to let us get on. So we sort of managed to get on the plane. Kate was, I was, sort of supporting her, carrying her, and things like that. We got to LA, and friends there, we'd sort of already organised to meet them. So we had like a sort of 3 or 4 hour layover. So Kate basically just sort of crashed out, had a sleep there, and then again, do we, don't we, do we, don't we? And Kate sort of made a decision that, like, I just want to get home. And luckily, we'd sort of managed to get like an upgrade to business class and things like that through one of Kate's friends. And because of that, so we're in the you could lie down and you have beds. So basically, I sat with her the whole trip while she was there. Sometimes sort of breathing, sort of dropping in and out, and just not really too sure, if we were going to make it. Then, thankfully we got we made it to Auckland and straight to the hospital there, and then spent a couple of weeks there, so that Kate was sort of strong enough to fly from Auckland to Dunedin actually. And again, after talking to doctors and things like that, maybe how close things were to not going so well and things like that might have been a bit closer than what we'd sort of realised. She's a pretty tough cookie.
She is. How did you feel throughout all this? Were you just keeping it together?
There's obviously there's a lot of doubt in your mind, and really just trying to stay as present as possible in the moment. So the best thing that I can do for for Kate and for the kids and things like that is to be there and love Kate as much as I can in that moment. And then then when we got to Auckland, I felt we've got through that sort of hurdle, so it was quite a relief. And I've got a couple of really good mates in Auckland as well. So you have a little bit of support there as well, and so various people come in and sort of see Kate and catch up, and that sort of brought some some light and some positive energy and everything like that. And it was definitely up until that point, one of the more challenging sort of moments in my life. It was a very long flight, to sort of say the least.
And did you feel throughout the journey, not just this experience, were there moments where you disconnected or checked out, or were you able to stay quite present? Again, just a little bit more insight into, and I really appreciate this, into how you navigated this, like any dark times, any times where it just felt good, and everything in between.
It's good. It's good question. I think in part one we sort of spoke a little bit about our trip around South America, and one of the big learning lessons for me is because we were backpacking, so you're doing it on a little bit of a budget, so quite often our trips would be on these buses, which were typically in pretty poor condition, but you might be on a bus, say for 12, 18, 24 hours, and there can be there might have been chickens on the bus, various dogs, animals, chocolate people, so what I realized after some of these bus trips was the next day, because I hadn't had any movement, my ability to handle stress was significantly worse, and then also just not as nice a person to be around, you know. So that was a really big sort of aha moment for me. Like I'd sort of realized, you know, like training had always been part of my life, exercise, sport, always been a big part of my life, but this actually made me realize, like, hey, this is actually a big stress management tool for me personally. This works really well. So with regards to, you know, how did I sort of manage things sort of throughout this journey with Kate? Like I knew exercise was a big part of my stress management arsenal. You know, one of my big tools. My nutrition, you know, that is just the same. Like I've eaten like that for, you know, 10 to 15, 20 years. But like I would, you know, typically call it a healthy diet. You know, so I think I've got a pretty good base or foundation there. And the other big piece, you know, like I've done a gratitude log for, you know, well over sort of 15 years now as well. And for me personally, like I felt those three things really gave me a great foundation to sort of navigate through this journey. Now, if I didn't have those things in place, the chances of me putting them in place in a situation of crisis, for me, would be next to none. You know, because you're just using so much mental, emotional energy trying to, you know, be supportive, you know, look after the kids, as well as trying to understand, you know, your own emotions, that actually trying to add in anything else on top of that, for me personally, I know just wouldn't have happened. But as I say, like I was lucky. I had a few things in there that I knew were really, really important for me with regards to my sort of mental, emotional well-being. And I'd had the reps basically, you know, so I put in a lot of, you know, a lot of time. So I had those routines, rituals and habits already sort of locked in. So I think,
Yeah.
I think that was a massive piece.
This is something that I really admire about you, and why I've loved having you come and speak to, when I had the clinic, you came and spoke to my team, and I've invited you to come and speak to some of my online groups as well. And why I say I just feel like you're so grounded, and watching you go through this experience with Kate. I mean, we actually met first, and you introduced me to Kate, and I knew you before her cancer experience as well, is that you've always come across very grounded. And I remember you speaking at a wellbeing event here in Wanaka, and you come back to these simple basics and foundations. And I really hope that it inspires some people, both men and women, who are listening to this, to recognize we've got to put in the work before we really need it. Because, as you say, when we hit crisis, adding more in is almost next to impossible. And every time Kate, you know, you guys would come over here for brunch or lunch or whatever, and Kate would often come on her own. Where's Aaron? Oh, he's training. Even when I spoke to her in Mexico, where's Aaron? Oh, he's down at the gym. And I was like, do you ever get annoyed at this? And she's like, no, I know he needs it. And so I really loved how she was very supportive of that. And I do love how you have just come down to these few basics of movement, nutrition, rituals, like the gratitude log, and that's carried you through.
We you know, we sort of touched on, you know, a little bit of our relationship and things like that before, but you know, one of the things that made me realize that Kate was a little bit different to, you know, to previous relationships that I've been in and things like that, was that she understood the things that were important to me. So as you say, like, you know, things like, you know, being able to train regularly, you know, and it's not nothing over the top. So it might be, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but I need that sort of consistency. Like she, as you said, like, obviously, she was, she had a very sort of active lifestyle herself, but she was very supportive in some of those key tenets that I needed and things. So yeah, so and again, so I'm in Mexico seeing the lady that I love going through all this treatment, which was pretty full on, big days. So that's actually a time for me to double down and make sure I am consistent with the things that I need. And and again, so the clinic would actually didn't like you hanging out during the day. So I'd go across and maybe hang out as much as I could before they kick me out. Then they kick me out, and then it'd be my opportunity while sort of Kate continued. I'd quickly go, do your workout and things like that, and be ready for when she got back. But as I said, like and this is what I've quite often seen, from a coaching point of view, quite often, whether it's like a change of environment or I'm going to go, I'm away on holiday, so all of a sudden people really fall out of their routines and rituals, and whereas all times of stress or crisis, where I'd say it's actually understanding those, those one or two key things that are going to be significant for you. Like it's almost your sort of Pareto's law, like 80-20. What are the small things that you can do that kind of give you the biggest bang for your buck, because you are in this stressed environment, crisis mode.
I love that you looked after yourself, and I follow this amazing relationship psychologist, Esther Perel, and I went and saw her live in Auckland just recently. And the question, she's got a podcast, and also the question came up of, what happens when you become the caretaker for your partner? And one of the things that she really emphasized is that you've got to take care of yourself. And so I see so many people just feel guilty that they're looking after themselves. They feel that it's selfish, and they just go and sacrifice themselves. And I come back to that really cliche analogy of love yourself first so that others can love you, but look after yourself so that you've actually got the energy to give to others fully.
Would you not say that is the case in any relationship? So not even in a crisis situation, that really
there's a lot of sacrifice.
For me to be the best thing I can do, or one of the best things I can do for any relationship, whether it's as a parent or as a significant, your significant other, is to be to look after yourself, whether that's sort of physically, emotionally, spiritually. That's going to be the foundation. I've always well, not always, definitely as a 20-year-old male, no, but as I've got older,
listen to part one.
And as I've got older, that's what I've realized. And then
I totally agree. And that's why sometimes I fear judgment when I say this, that this situation that you were in with Kate is the same as in your family dynamics, regardless of health issues happening or with your parenting. And I guess it comes back to that, an element of the oneness and how everything's interconnected. I have been saying a lot recently, same shit, different story. It still comes back to some really basic foundations.
The more we can simplify, the better. It's the old KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid.
And that's what I find interesting when I'm working with a lot of people, is why are you adding more things, like more appointments, more therapies? Actually, if you're this stressed, you've got to take things out of the way. And what are some of the basic things that you can do, and then build from there? We just keep on adding rather than going deeper.
It is. I'd love to sort of hear Esther's take on this as well. Those people that, as you say, that want to keep adding. What is the void that maybe they're trying to fill?
Actually,
as you said, is some of that deeper. the deeper questioning around.
Yeah, sorry, I've got a million things going through my mind and I just interrupted you. Yeah, this externalization. And I think it's, from what I've observed, is that it sometimes feels easier if we can feel like we're doing something rather than sit and be with our feelings, with our emotions, or go deeper into the layers within ourselves, our history, and why we're responding in the world or reacting in the world the way we are. The other thing's gone out of my mind. I'm curious, when you were spending time with Kate and you had the alone time, what kind of conversations would you both have?
Ooh.
You're both quite funny people.
Yeah, very well. Like, you know, she'd made a couple of you know, really you know, good friends, you know, from the clinic and things like that as well. You know,
Mhm.
so who were obviously also you know, on a bit of a journey and things. So again, you know, because I sort of came at the end of her stay. You know, there was this sort of friends group that had established pretty tight bonds and things like that. You know, so sometimes it might just look like, you know, the girls would be, you know, well, maybe we all have a meal together and girls will be having a bit of a laugh and things like that, and I'm more just sort of sitting there listening, supporting, you know, because when you know, when you're you know, faced with that challenge, you know, sometimes communication might look more like, you know, I'm not talking, I'm listening. You
Yeah,
know,
as you were sharing that, I've always found you quite a good listener.
so yeah, so I'd say that there was a lot of it. And again, you know, as I was saying, like we were, you know, we were pretty positive. You know, with the ascites, you know, like the last few days that I was there, you know, Kate was sort of quite uncomfortable. And again, you know, so that would, you know, because of the treatments and things like that, you know, she might get back from the clinic and then might have to go to bed and things like that as well. So,
Mm.
you know, again, just sort of managing those, you know, energy levels and things like that was sort of a big part of it. And that's sort of where I could sort of see my role was that, you know, maybe Kate, you know, needed some food or whatever. I could go out and get it, and you rest, honey, and let me know what I can do.
Mm.
You know, do a foot massage, or you know, your legs rubbed, or um, you know, one bit I remember, you know, was Kate being Kate. You know, she apologized, you know, because her energy levels went up. She said, "Oh, you know, I was really hoping we could sort of make love while you were here, but my energy levels." And so that's one conversation that I sort of remember from
Mhm.
that. But you know, a lot of it, as I say, was more around support and you know, we were at the hotel we were at was sort of right on the beach, so you know, we might go down and, you know, just have a little bit of a sleep on the, you know, down on the beach. And yeah, you know, definitely those last few days and things like that were, you know, were pretty challenging from an energy point of view. And so
Mm.
but never yeah, never any conversations around sort of the what if.
Yeah.
And you know, there was, you know, naturally there was sort of moments, you know, when, you know, this is bloody hard, why me?
Mhm.
um, you know, that's as a partner, you know, in a lot of regards, you sort of feel pretty helpless, and you'd like to do more. And sometimes, you know, all you can do is maybe have a cuddle, and you know, so yeah, you always wish that you could, you know, say the right thing so that so that you could make it better.
Did you share tears with Kate?
He yeah, one of my challenges, I suppose, you know, I sort of felt guilt around it, was that you know, crying was actually you know, very difficult for me, and even you know, when I could have this huge sense of feelings inside of me that I wanted to get out, for some reason I couldn't, and you know, I'd really sort of not dwell on it too long, because it doesn't sort of really serve you, but definitely you know, have thoughts around, you know, like, shit, you know, look at this situation, you know, you've got these feelings that, you know, why can't you cry? So you know, I found that, you know, interesting, you know, and then that was you know, definitely, like when Kate did pass, you know, like, again, I sort of found myself in that same situation. You know, you know, you can sort of feel, you know, this mass of emotions sort of sitting there that you want to get out, but I just couldn't. Like, it's almost like you know, my emotional tank was sort of completely cut off. You know, like, you almost become a little bit numb to a certain degree.
And do you think that this has got any link with your upbringing? Were you ever taught anything about crying?
Look, I haven't delved into it that deeply, but you know, just recently I've been thinking that I want to, you know, for myself as a parent going forward. So yeah, so look, obviously, you know, the narrative around you know, crying, you know, for me, and I suspect a lot of boys in New Zealand, is, you know, you don't cry, because that's you know, it's a sign of weakness and being soft, you know. So, and you know, sort of given the situation at home and things like that, you know, like I didn't want to be you know, a burden to mum and things like that, you know, by maybe sort of showing my emotions. I'm just keep on tracking, you know. So yeah, so whether it was, you know, whether it was tied in, you know, I don't know whether it's you know, you sort of put up certain barriers or walls to manage the situation. You know, I still don't really know. Like, you know, so Kate's second anniversary of her passing, you know, like, I personally found it a lot harder than her first. And I think there's a couple of factors in there. I think that whole piece around, you know, putting up certain armor and things like that in that first year just to survive was a big piece. And then, as we came into the sort of the second anniversary, some of those layers maybe started to come off. Now it's almost, a bit like some maybe peeling an onion, and then and then I wasn't working at that time as well, so I didn't have the distraction of work, which meant I had time to sort of reflect and think. And there's definitely whether it's sort of conscious or not, probably definitely sort of strategies that you put in place, so so that I could still be the dad that I wanted to be and things like that. Sorry, I was accent. We'd so again, comes back to our conversation before, like when Kate sort of first passed, I went to speak to Frankie Dean, and who was absolutely amazing. And I've done work with her since and done some parenting stuff with her and stuff like that. She really, we're very lucky to have her in
she's an incredible lady
in our community. But yeah, so like I went to see Frankie, and I said to, like, at the start of the session, look, I want to come here and get some ideas around the kids. So what are the things I should be looking for? What's some of the language? Male, very solution based. Boom, 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 boom.
Don't focus on me.
Yeah, exactly. So throughout the session, she keeps circling it back to me. I know what you're doing here. And her whole thing was, like, yes, I'm circling it back to you, like, if you're in a good space, then your kids will be all right. And so with regards to how do I navigate this? Well, I think a lot of it is, you put up certain, as I said, layers or armor, so that you can present a certain picture to the kids. That, like, in saying that, I want to be very very clear, like that picture for me, what felt right was not about being, I'm happy all the time and things like that, so the kids see me being happy and life is good. It was still about showing emotions. There's times where I might be in the bedroom crying, and the kids might come in. So it wouldn't be a case that I'd try and jump up, wipe my eyes, and then push on. Life is good. It was like, hey kids, daddy needs a cuddle. Like, he really misses mummy and things like that. So it wasn't maybe that armor, that those layers. It's not about sort of hiding all emotion. It's
to not protect them.
It's maybe you just say, like, it's sort of dose dependent. Because again, like, if dad was crying all the time, well, that's probably not going to serve the kids that well either. So so as I say, sort of coming up to sort of the second anniversary, I had a bit more time, and maybe some of those layers are sort of slowly being peeled back, and it was significantly tougher than the sort of the first anniversary.
Thank you for sharing. And another little question for you. With I see that you just sort of stepped into a support role very easily. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you have any times of resentment?
Support and with regards to Kate?
Yeah, when she was still around, and any resentment towards Kate that came up?
It's a really good question. it's quite a complex question. I don't. You know, there might have only been maybe sort of 2 or 3 moments, and you know, and they were very sort of brief.
Can you share these?
Yeah. So it wasn't. The resentment was around times when you know, the way Kate was with the kids.
Okay.
So
Which
there's,
was?
you know, there's a couple, you know, couple of moments, you know, where I was frustrated, that then in hindsight probably didn't realize, you know, probably the pain that Kate was in, and the lack of energy, you know. So maybe as an example, you know, Olivia, you know, Olivia running up to have a cuddle with Kate, and you know, Kate, you know, responding by sort of pushing her away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was one time I sort of you know, remember pretty clearly, and then in the hospice, you know, where Ed sort of jumped up on the bed and sort of, you know, as a 3-year-old does, sort of jumped on mum to give him a cuddle, and you know, Kate was pretty aggressive with how she sort of pushed them off, and you sort of you know, you see that look, and
I actually remember that interaction.
yeah, look, it was a pretty it's one of those moments, you know, and I have, like, I you know, I don't know if I had the maybe the strength of character to be able to talk to Kate about it after. But I have no doubt, you know, there probably would have been some pretty strong feelings from Kate, you know, after the incident and things like that. But you know, but yeah, for myself personally, never. Yeah, no,
Did it bring up sadness for you on the kids' behalf?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's that, and you know, that's, you know, here I am trying to show my love and feelings for my mum, and then my mum has pushed me away in a pretty aggressive sort of manner.
Did that trigger anything in you and memories for you?
Look, I as I've got older, you know, like I've realised probably as a family unit, like, you know, my mum and sister, you know, and myself, you know, we are not very good at showing or expressing our emotions, you know, and you know, so I think you know, I know the environment that I grew up in was not, you know, emotions weren't really discussed or shown or encouraged, you know. So it's definitely has probably influenced, you know, how I look at parenting, and you know, what I try and do from a parenting point of view and things like that, is maybe as a template of what not to do, maybe. So,
okay. Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, for myself, you know, like there's always, you know, things that you look back on and reflect upon, and you know, like I'm probably almost at the things I tend to reflect more on is no feelings of resentment. It's more around, you know, what are the things that I could have done better, you know. And
what are those reflections been?
I wish I'd expressed my love more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that probably
In words.
in words, you know, sort of, you know, tell Kate how much you know, she means to me, and but you know that, but because we were, you know, Kate passing wasn't an option, you know, and the decline actually, you know, things were actually looking really good. The decline actually happened pretty quickly.
Mm.
You know, so there wasn't, you know, those big sort of moments where, or actually, you know, we need to have discussions around, you know, the what if and what they could look like, and you know, this is an opportunity for me to, you know, say how I feel, and gratitude, and so you know, there's, if yeah, if there's anything I would change, then that'd be it, you know. I just think, again, it's a generalization, but you know, men in general, you know, we should try and get better at expressing maybe our feelings to our loved ones, you know, and, because it can all change very quickly, and then you lose that opportunity.
Mm. And oh, there's still quite a few things I want to go through. Are you okay to continue?
Yeah.
So, and I will just reference that Robin in her podcast did cover a lot of the ins and outs, and I guess the technicalities around Kate's passing as well.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more insight there. So as you said, it happened quite quickly. And actually, she ended up in hospital, didn't she? She had a few more bouts of vomiting of blood, and she ended up in hospital, and things weren't looking too great. And then she went to hospice. She was not conscious.
Yeah.
And then she rose from the dead. and everybody, that's all right. Everybody like flocked down to Dunedin.
Yeah.
It
literally was rising from the dead.
Yeah, I can't remember what Shakespeare I think it was that Robin referenced, but yeah, we thought she was going.
Yeah,
And
so so I was at the hospice. Yeah, you know, like I, you know, couldn't sleep, and you know, was ringing various sort of people around the world, you know, so like, you know, 4 a.m. So, you know, I was ringing people in the UK and things like that who I knew, sort of just trying to, you know, gather my thoughts. You know, there's sort of value sometimes in talking, and then, you know, another couple of friends that sort of said, you know, any time is cool, and so, you know, they were getting phone calls as well, and then yeah, you know, so and then the next day, all of a sudden, Kate sort of turned this bit of a corner, and sort of progressed, yeah, got stronger and things like that as the sort of the day went on. And
what did she ask for when she woke up? She asked for
uh,
something, maybe like a gin and tonic or something like that.
it was pretty,
A
you
tequila.
know, it was pretty,
It was some form of alcohol.
yeah, it was pretty amazing sort of moments and things like that. And yeah, and it actually turned out to be a pretty lovely experience, with regards to, like, as you said, like, there are lots of people sort of traveled down to Dunedin, and it was almost a bit like a party atmosphere.
Oh, it was.
All
Yeah,
of
we thought that we actually had that whole lounge, and we're like, oh, there's other people here that
I was going
it's
to
not just
say,
Kate's lounge.
I sort of remember looking at the other sort of people in the hospice and things like that, and you could sort of tell, like, what the hell's going on here,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, so that was that was, interesting, and pretty, again, like, pretty full on. I'd so Kate had been helicoptered down there, and this had happened maybe sort of 3 or 4 times before, and then always come through it and things like that. But then this was the time that I actually, so I hadn't traveled down with her.
Mm.
This was the time that I actually got the call from the hospital, sort of saying, look, what do you want to do? These are sort of our thoughts, with regards to keeping her in hospital or going to hospice. I'd it's the last contact that I'd had with Kate, by phone, her voice seemed quite sort of faint, and then a little bit, and she wasn't a lot of clarity with what she was sort of saying.
Mm.
Yeah, and so, like, it wasn't too long after that I also got this phone call. So then it was, in the car, blasting down to Dunedin with, first of all, sort of getting someone to look after the kids, getting in the car, and then blasting down, and then a million sort of thoughts, and sort of running through your head and things. And
What sort of thoughts do you remember?
then, a lot of it was around, shit, is this going to happen? Like a little bit of disbelief. Why didn't I travel down with her? There's sort of some guilt around that, but a lot of it was around sort of the disbelief. Is this actually going to be the is this that sort of scenario? I'd sort of the picture that sort of the doctors painted, like, I felt the most the best environment for Kate was to be in the hospice. Like, I had a lot of internal doubt, if I made the right decision, because, again, I'm not making the decision for me. I'm supposed to be making it for Kate, and I know Kate's probably, if it was up to her to make the decision, she would probably be going, let's keep me in hospital till, let's try whatever we can sort of try, sort of scenario. But yeah, as I said, my sort of thoughts around that, with what the doctor had sort of said, there's sort of really sort of minimal chance, and then the environment and what it could look like from, wouldn't have been, so I just felt it was the better decision to go to hospice and things like that. And as it turned out, the staff and the environment there was, unbelievable. And then we had that, amazing sort of story, sort of turnaround.
Yeah. So she managed to go back home after, I think it was about a week.
Yeah. So we sort of we drove drove home together as a family, and then yeah, she got like a wee infection sort of in the cut from where they've been sort of draining, fluid off her belly, and yeah, so sort of so we had a night at home, and then went into the medical centre and to sort of get this sort of checked out. She sort of felt yeah, she wanted to go to the medical centre, so we sort of went in together, and yeah, things sort of played out from there. Again,
can I ask what happened at the medical centre?
Yeah, we were so we were basically just in a room together. Kate's heart rate and things like that was sort of getting fairly sort of weak. And I was holding her hand, and then she sort of turned her head and looked at me and said, she just can't cope with the pain anymore. And a tear sort of rolled down sort of the side of her face, and she sort of closed her eyes, and then then there was that sort of the heart rate must have dropped, so it sort of set off an alarm and things like that, and so then there's a team of people sort of came in and sort of worked on her for 45 minutes. It was a very intense, sort of chaotic environment. Like I was sort of standing there, and CPR, and again it got to the point where we had to make a decision, whether jump on the helicopter again and go to Dunedin or go to the hospice here in Wanaka. And sort of going off what the experts have sort of said, I decided to go to the hospice, which again I probably know sort of deep down that Kate would probably be a bit pissed off with that, but they sort of said that because she was in such a fragile state, even just the transporting her from the medical centre to the helicopter, might be enough to for her to pass and things like that. So the actual probability of her making Dunedin and things like that was pretty minimal. But I know I know, and because Kate was a fighter and competitive, she'd probably say give it a go. But then it was probably really in that moment when she looked at me and said, I can't do it anymore, is probably my first realization that how much pain she had actually been in, because she'd never never told me or really complained, you know, not about pain and things. So so then from there went to the hospice in Monaco.
Do you wish that she told you more about how she was feeling and what pain she was in?
The only thing I wish we'd discussed more maybe was that big question, which is a hard one. The what ifs.
Mm-hmm.
If I pass, what are some of the things you'd really like me to do with the kids? How do I parent? All those sort of things. But there was a couple of times where we said we should have these conversations, but they never really sort of eventuated, and some of that was because of this, or that mindset that we were in, that everything was going to be all right. And as I said, in hindsight, there's a bit of sort of naivety, stupidity on my behalf, potentially. So that's sort of how it played out in the end. I still see those images sometimes in the medical centre, when I sleep, and but then at the same time I wouldn't change it either, because we were together and we had that moment. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing Kate's last moments in that situation. When she went to the hospice in Wanaka, once again, so many people flocked in. How did you feel then? I mean, did you want to just spend time with Kate on your own? Or were you okay with all those people?
It's a good question. We had like it was nice. It was nice to sort of have that support there, and my first thoughts. The hospice room here wasn't as nice as as Dunedin, and like I was just so devastated, because I literally had to make that decision. Do I go to Dunedin? Do I go to hospice? We turn, so my idea of hospice was, what it was like in Dunedin, very modern and nice, and then it's not quite the same here, and I was like devastated. But lots of friends, and particularly yourself, sort of all of a sudden it was bloody, it was all on. There was plants coming in, and pictures and posters, and it just made such a massive difference, for me. But no, like, and knowing that, like, that's just the shit that I'm not good at. So to be able to sort of step away, or not step away, but just all of a sudden all this stuff was just happening,
Mm.
You know, it's quite you know, quite amazing. Again, you know, Kate, you know, Kate loved people and energy and partying, and you know, sort of have that an environment sort of almost, you know, at the end I felt was really you know, was sort of very fitting, you know, for the person that Kate was. And then, you know, then we had you know, sort of a pretty amazing, you know, 45 minutes, you know, where there was just me and the kids in the room together with Kate, and you know, we were sort of drawing pictures. And
Just before that moment, because she was not conscious,
yeah,
still breathing, and then everyone was in the room with her, and her breathing changed, and then that's when you got called in, and you were with her in her last breaths.
yeah.
Then
The so at the hospice, like I'd sort of spoken to the doctors and things like that, so they had sort of given me a bit of an understanding of what those sort of last moments you know, might be like. And yeah, so there was, you know, we were in there together. You know, it's a pretty you've got, you know, a lot of sort of thoughts and emotions sort of floating around anyway, but it's actually a pretty it's a very confronting, you know, final few moments, basically. Just with the way the sort of the breathing changes and what impact that has on the body and things. You know, and again, you know, it's almost, you know, for me, it's almost that sort of sense of numb, just being numb.
mm-hmm.
And not really knowing what to do. And then yeah, then from there, you know, the sort of kids sort of came in, and it's a pretty you know, you're not going to have a harder conversation in your life, I think, than to tell your kids that your mum's just died. Yeah, so again,
What was their response or reaction?
I think you know, I think for Ed, it was you know, I don't know if he really sort of understood, you know, just with his age and things like that, what was sort of happening. Olivia was pretty upset. So we sort of had some cuddles and chatted, and then drew some pictures. Olivia was pretty happy with her. She drew some pictures of Kate's sort of favourite shoe, like, you know, high heels sort of things. That, you know, it's a bit it's very hard to describe, and it probably sounds you know, a little bit crazy, but you know, there was moments, you know, when I was sitting in there, like, you know, we were there as a family, and you know, they're actually like really special moments. So you know, you're in the depth of, you know, this, you know, absolute catastrophe, and yet, you know, there was, you know, moments of love and joy. You know, maybe that's the beauty that kids bring to it. You know, they, you know, one moment they, you know, can be in that sort of this deep moments of sadness, and then, you know, then the next minute they're doing something funny and laughing, and you know, so, and yeah, you know, as I said, like, you know, some really special memories and moments in there, which I wouldn't have expected to be given that situation, you know, and those moments were around love and connection as a family, and you know, then on the other side, you know, as a family, you've just lost so much.
Duality.
Yeah, very much so.
And I remember afterwards you were in the room, and that is when you so articulately shared with everyone the story of how you and Kate met, which we covered in part 1.
Yeah.
And again, she was there, but there was still a lot of joy and laughter and a lot of amusement, and just really feeling how connected you were with that memory of first meeting Kate and saying no, and how she responded. And yeah, that was really beautiful. And I feel it's really beautiful to capture this moment 2.5 years later for you to listen back to, for your kids to listen back to, Olivia and Ed as well. So how have you navigated these last 2.5 years? You said some survival mode initially. Are there any, you talked a little bit about talking about the what ifs, anything that you want to add there? And what are some transitions that you've moved through, or struggles as well?
Yeah, you know, like as a, you know, as a family, you know, as you'd expect, like, you know, there's definitely been, you know, lots of, you know, challenging, hard moments, but then also, you know, also plenty of joy as well. You know, one of the, you know, the initial challenges for us, like, was, you know, this is sort of COVID times and lockdowns and stuff like that. So, you know, so it was over a month before we could actually have the funeral, which allowed time for Kate's parents to come in from Australia. You know, we were very lucky. I think if it had happened a bit later, you know, the way sort of government changed things, that it probably wouldn't have happened. You know, so, you know, over the course of that month, you know, myself and the kids, you know, would, not often, but a few times, and this would typically be driven by the kids if they wanted to go and see Kate. You know, we'd you know, go and have a look and spend sort of time with her, and you know, with the, you know, she's in the coffin, and the coffin would be open. you know, and that might look like, so yeah, so at that stage, you know, we're living in a Hawea, and particularly with Olivia, you know, she might, I want to go and see mummy.
Mm.
Okay, so we go in, and she might just put her hand on her, and then that's enough. Then she just want to leave.
Mm.
So, you know, so that was again, like, you mentioned the word sort of chaotic before, and that was a very sort of chaotic time as well, because, you know, all of a sudden the world's in lockdown, and, you know, you're going through all this, you know, red tape and stuff like that to try and get the, you know, her mum and dad into to the funeral, and so as well as, you know, trying to come to grips with what's just happening, you know, then you're trying to deal with all this sort of stuff as well.
Mm.
Um,
The logistics.
yeah, logistics, yeah, you know, so you know, so like, you know, the good thing was that you know, Michael and Robbie could be here. You know, you don't know, but you know, maybe it was nice that we had that opportunity to sort of go and, you know, reconnect, and, you know, quite often, you know, if depending on how the kids were, you know, I'd sort of sit there and try and have a little bit of, you know, I'd have a chat, you know, with Kate.
Oh
And,
yeah, yeah.
you know, a bit of a laugh about maybe, you know, silly things that I've done, and
Yeah.
you know, it's a bit of, you know, sort of cathartic in itself.
Mm. Do you connect and speak to Kate out loud now?
Not as much. I had yeah, this is you know, not long after Kate had passed, and good mate of mine had his 40th birthday, and he had the idea that we'd all sort of snowshoe into one of the huts at Snow Farm, and yeah, so there's like three families, 6 or 7 kids, all under sort of 5 or 6. You know, it was always going to be a disaster. Anyway, it ended up, Ed, for whatever reason, you know, I had to carry him the whole way, and it's like a sort of farmer's walk. So I won't go into it too much, but, you know, basically that the reason I did the trip was because historically I would be the Grinch and say, "Oh no, I can't be asked doing that." Whereas Kate would always say, "Let's do it. It'll be, you know, stop being so bloody boring." So even though I had a suspicion that it was going to be a disaster, it was going to be hard work, I did it. So as I was carrying Ed in my snowshoes,
Is there a lesson there?
sweating, I pretty much constantly was speaking to her, saying, "I bet you're laughing." And, you know, there's been numerous times, you know, since that I've got a sense that Kate is here, sort of guiding, giving her wisdom and things like that.
For you?
For me, yeah. And
What are those sort of signs? Are they feelings, or are they something visible?
just more feelings, and then, you know, for a lot of my sort of decision making process and things like that, like, you know, maybe particularly you know, around the kids and things, you know, it's always sort of through the lens of you know, what would Kate do, what would we do, as opposed to just me, you know. And there's probably subtleties to that. You know, I think the interesting piece around sort of the kids is, you know, different ages and stages, you know, you get different questions, you know. So, like I'm you know, I'm an old man, and I struggle to get my head around and understand why or how this is happening, you know. So how do you do that as a 5 or a 6 or a 7-year-old, you know, like it just you know, absolutely sort of blows me away that, you know, that are some of the things that, you know, some of the questions that Ed and Olivia have to deal with, you know. We'd you know, this is not long after you know, Kate had passed. You know, so Olivia would have been 5. So she started school just after the funeral, and yeah, so we were sort of lying in bed. I had sort of Ed on one shoulder, Olivia on the other, with this big cuddle. You know, we were all sort of a bit down, and you know, he'd sort of, you know, he'd sort of said, "Oh, you know, I really miss Mummy." And you know, before I could say or do anything, Olivia reached across, put her hand on Ed's heart, and said, "Mummy will always be there." Like, fucking hell, it's like from a 5-year-old. And you know, so, you know, I've you know, probably learnt you know, more from the kids and the way they've handled this and things like that than what I've been able to sort of support or help them with, you know. Like, it's, you know, you get you know, like I had a few people sort of email me and things like that, you know, when Kate sort of first passed, and they said, "Oh, you know, it's, you know, maybe I was the same age as, you know, Olivia or Ed, you know, when one of my parents passed, and you know, it was in my teenage years, or you know, in my 20s, where it really sort of hit me and things like that, you know, which, you know, has been such you know, valuable information for me, you know. So, like, I know it's just, you know, it's the long game that we're playing, you know, with regards to the kids, and you know, I know you know, some of those times, you know, where you get you know, big reactions from the kids from maybe something that's pretty trivial. You know, it's not actually that trivial thing that was the trigger. It's, you know, I've got these big emotions sort of sitting there, and then this actually gives me the opportunity to sort of get them out, you know. If I'd you know, for Olivia's sixth birthday, you know, we had a beautiful day, like little party, you know, lots of fun and smiles and everything like that. And then I was putting her to bed at night, and you know, she looked at me and she goes, "Oh, you know, I was really hoping Mum was going to turn up today." It just fucking breaks you, eh? But it was a really good lesson for me to help me understand. Like, you sort of never, like, as a parent, you never know what's happening in the background. You know, what are those sort of thoughts and feelings? And as I said before, you know, like, I think you know, what I'm finding is as their yeah, you know, as they get older, you know, then the questions sort of change. As I'm sure, you know, they must have, you know, more questions themselves and things like that.
And so, how are you navigating this past year? You've made some big changes in your life.
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, there's definitely you know, days where I get to the end of the day and feel I could have done things significantly better. You know, with regards to moments, parenting and things like that, you know, some of the decisions you make.
Do you ever lose it at your kids?
Pardon?
Do you ever lose it with your kids?
what days don't I lose it with my kids?
I've never, I don't know, it never seems to happen when I'm there, but also different things happen when we're in our own space. And when I mean lose it, do you ever yell at your kids? I've never seen you do that.
Yeah, I ask the kids. I'm sure they'll tell you different. So this is something I find quite interesting. So with regards to myself, look, I've as far back as I can remember, like, I've always been involved in coaching to some degree. So even like when I was at school, primary school, playing sport at primary school, I would organise teams to do extra training sessions. Whether that was hey, I'm the coach, whether it was just, as I say, organising coach. So like I've always been and then from there, always seek out information to try and be the best I can from a physical point of view. But it's only been since Kate's passed that I've actually taken the time and invested sort of money to do coaching or get support in that sort of mental emotional space. So to answer your question, like, I've done quite a few things, spoken to quite a few people. Probably one of the most powerful things that sort of influenced my parenting the most is I did maybe like a 10 session block with Taylor Rapley, who's in Monica, and that was around a lot of it was around my sort of personal values. So trying to understand what some of those deeper drivers are for myself, and then trying to live a life that is aligned to those values. And I suppose interestingly, before I did those sessions and things like that, like I thought, once you discover your values, then all of a sudden life is easy. Or actually, it can make life harder if you're going to live a life aligned to your values. So it's not to say that maybe you have these values that you've got, but then your behaviors are completely the opposite. You might say, well, do I need to change my behaviors, or do I need to change my values? So one of those words for me is love. And so in those moments where maybe I would have exploded, I will try and say that word to myself, and quite often it's just enough to buy myself that 1 or 2 seconds. And then from there, then I can actually sort of gone from that red brain a bit more blue. I can have a conscious discussion with myself. So in this moment, what does actually love look like? Is it me exploding it, Ed or Olivia, or could it be something like, actually maybe I need to lean in and understand more, or comfort, or something like that. So that's the that's been really, really powerful for me. But like, I still have multiple fuck ups and disasters and stuff like that, where I do yell and scream, but it's significantly less than what it used to be. And just particularly in those end of the day, maybe my energy levels are low and things like that. And that's often those moments where you look back and reflect and go, well, I could have done that better. as I said, like, that was, really, really helpful for me, and when I initially sort of spoke to Taylor about doing the sessions, it was around, trying to get a bit of support around my parenting and things like that,
Mm.
as well.
I love that you are working on yourself. Coming back to the conversations about Frankie Dean in part 1, is that she kept on circling back to you.
Yeah.
So that's really beautiful. And then work changes, navigating that.
Yeah, it's,
because you used to travel a lot.
yeah, I was going to say, like at the start of the year, I was sitting in my office at home, the kids were inside with babysitter, and I sort of got this email through from work, sort of listing out maybe sort of 4 or 5, meetings that I should go to around the region. And, I sort of looked at that list and thought, well, this one I'll probably, get home at midnight, and this one will probably be 1 a.m. By the time we do the meeting and travel home. Like work is always, has been incredibly supportive. This when I was working with the rugby union. So they would always say, look, we put you in a hotel or whatever. It was actually my decision was, like, I wanted to be home so I could be with the kids, in the morning. So anyway, I just got that gut feeling, like I got this email, could hear the kids playing, like, they, as the kids grow up so quickly. So I just, in that moment, I sort of felt like, actually I need to spend more time with the kids, particularly, they're growing up and growing up fast, and but particularly sort of given our situation. So so I rang my boss the next sort of day and said, look, this is what I'm thinking. As an organisation, things like that, you've been incredibly supportive over the last couple of years. So I want to make this process as easy as possible. So probably ended up taking a little bit longer to step aside than what I anticipated.
But you made the move, the small step.
But I made the move, and I'm very, very grateful that I did. Like, there's still moments of doubt, because again, you're walking away from an income and things like that, so a certain amount of stability, and which can be very daunting at times. But I just have to keep going back to what was my original driver for stepping away, was to spend more time with the kids. I think you're not going to get a better investment than spending time with your kids. And even before Ed started school, for whatever reason, there's a couple of things in his life that sort of changed a little bit, and I sort of felt there'd been a bit of a change in behavior, so it meant that I could really spend time with him, and sort of which I feel has sort of really sort of paid dividends with regards to how he transitioned from daycare into school and things like that. And so that was sort of the driver, sort of work wise. Like it's
now you're doing your coaching full time. You don't have any other stable employed work or anything.
No. And then just like for all parents, it's a juggle, that sort of work life. I was going to say balance, but I don't.
Is that an illusion?
I don't really agree with that. Like, one of my biggest challenges this year, particularly since I've stepped away, has been around babysitters. When Kate first passed, I'd a couple of amazing babysitters, and had good stability, for sort of 18 months, and then both sitters sort of situations sort of changed, fairly similar time, and then all of a sudden, originally when Kate passed, I put an ad up, and there was multiple people applying and things like that, sort of pick and choose. Whereas this time, sort of post COVID, yeah, there was no one. It was amazing.
Babysitter shortage.
Yeah, and then obviously, you know, we've had this pretty hard year with regards to, you know, people having to go into isolation with COVID, or, you know, the flu or this vomiting bug, and you know, so with regards to managing work, you know, you might think, well, I've got X amount of hours in the day. Well, no,
They can just
actually,
get taken away from you.
yeah, and that might look like, you know, actually I'm in isolation for 7 days and stuff. So that's, but you know, that's you know, that's challenges that we all sort of have, isn't it? You know, from a parenting point of view, and
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Well, I thank you so much for sharing your own history and then more about life now. Is there anything else that you want to add or share with anyone who might be listening?
It's a good question. You know, like you know, there's obviously it's an opportunity to, you know, sort of thank, you know, the community and things like that that have you know, supported us sort of through this journey. You know, sort of family, friends, and you know, and that support still continues today. You know, and you know, a piece of my you know, from a work point of view, I suppose, you know, it's something that I would like to you know, drive going forward is there's an opportunity to maybe give back a little bit, as you know, for those, you know, those partners out there that have you know, maybe a partner with you know, cancer and things like that, to be able to support their journey, you know. So obviously
Comes back to looking after yourself as well, that we focused on. I can't remember if it was this part or the first part. And yeah, it's amazing that you're going to
there will be opportunities for free coaching and things like that in that space.
Beautiful.
And
I'll just reference, I'll put your details, your email and your Instagram handle for people to reach out in the show notes as well.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to share before we go?
I think people have probably had enough of me by now. You know, probably nice place to leave it.
Thank you so much, Aaron. You were actually the one on camera when you were sharing some very emotional parts, but I did have tears in my eyes. I didn't have my tissues. I really, really am grateful for you being as vulnerable as you have been today and sharing us the parts of a journey that I don't think many of us get to hear. It's a real honor to have had Kate on the podcast, one of my very first interviews, and then Robin, and now to circle back 2.5 years later. I know that we've been talking about it, and then you reached out and checked in with me and was like, okay, let's make it happen, let's book it. And we've talked for over 3 hours. So thank you. I appreciate everything that you have to offer, the support that you offer me and the listening ear when I want to vent on things. And let's catch up soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks, Jen.